You're watching Arise, the world's standout news channel.
It's the Watch News Day. We now cross live to Cairo, Egypt, where the inauguration ceremony of Afreximbank's new president, Dr. George Alumbi, is underway. Nigeria's Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, is presiding over the formal introduction and oath-taking. Dr. Alumbi becomes the fourth president of Afreximbank, succeeding Professor Benedict Orama in what many described as a defining moment for Africa's trade and financial integration. Let's listen.
Whose heart beats Africa. Today is an important milestone for the bank and for our continent. We will have opening and goodwill remarks, followed by a brief performance before inviting the current chairperson of the General Meeting of Shareholders, Mr. Wale Edun, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Federal Republic of Nigeria. The person who will be taking oath today, the President-designate, has been the one who in the past has been overseeing this particular ceremony. So he will be observing us with intent, so we cannot make any mistakes. Why are we here today? Yesterday offered a moment to honor the legacy that has shaped the African Export-Import Bank. Today, we set our sights firmly on the future. This journey of the bank has been relentless, like Dr. Orama's dancing last night, but today gives us a moment to pause and reflect on why we are here and the challenges ahead. We know that the bank has been revolutionary, but today is about evolution, not revolution. Reflecting the words we heard yesterday, institution building that lasts. Afreximbank has always ensured that each new phase is guided by wisdom and purpose. Through time, the bank's leaders have respected the foundations laid by their predecessors, celebrating their achievements, learning from their insights, and continuing the mission with renewed commitment. This tradition of legacy and seamless succession stands as a testament to the enduring institutional wisdom of the bank. As we witnessed cornerstone moments yesterday, today we come together to celebrate the transfer of leadership that will write the next chapter of this African story. The bank will be entrusted in new hands, those of a leader deeply familiar with its mission and values, to guide it with the same verve, energy, and clarity of vision. Yesterday reminded us of the systemic importance and significance of the bank for the continent and beyond. Today, the bank's got a footprint that is larger and more vital than ever. But as we gather here amongst friends, we are acutely aware that not everyone shares our vision for Africa's future, nor our aspirations to stand on our own 2 feet and define our own destiny. Overcoming these obstacles will demand shared leadership, steadfast diplomacy, and unwavering conviction, qualities that have long characterized the bank and which are embodied in our new leader. We gather here today, above all, to express our support to the President-designate, Dr. George Alumbi, as he takes on the mantle of leadership. Today's ceremony is both a celebration of progress and a reminder of the shared responsibilities that we all carry, individually, collectively, and as stewards of this bank. The journey ahead will be shaped by the President-designate who takes the oath today, and as he considers this important choice to come, he can draw strength from knowing that he is not alone. He will find in this room a community ready to stand with him, united in the ambition to fulfill the dreams of our forefathers and to serve the people of Africa. As we start today's proceedings, may I ask you to all stand as we play the anthem of this extraordinary country where we stand today, the Arab Republic of Egypt. The national anthem, please. please remain standing, we have the wonderful Hamzat Wasl Choir representing the different choirs that gathered here in Cairo a little over 3 years ago to sing the Afreximbank anthem. You may now be seated. You may now be seated. Thank you. What a wonderful rendition. Prosperity for posterity, the song of victory. Let us see what victory looks like.
In 2015, Professor Orama set out to turn Afreximbank into the engine room for a resilient Africa through trade. At the same time, the commodity slump echoed the shocks of the 1980s, and the determination to deal with the turmoil that had given rise to Afreximbank returned. Africa would handle the storm with its own hands and its own institutions again. Dealing with the 2015 and 2016 commodity shock head-on, Orama rallied the response. He set the tone and direction for the future. From the COVID-19 disruption of 2020 and 2021 to the Ukraine-related fallout from 2022 to 2024, the bank moved with steady continental reach. It projected self-reliance and staying power when it mattered most. When liquidity tightened, Afreximbank scaled up. Through Goodwill, $10 billion helped countries meet trade obligations during the slump, keeping supply lines open and obligations met. In the pandemic years of 2020 and 2021, disbursements reached at least $26 billion. They bridged budgets, protected trade, and sustained investment in growth sectors across the continent. As the Ukraine war rattled food and fuel flows, the bank followed through again with $50 billion between 2022 and 2023 to support essential imports and finance trade and development programs. In moments of pressure, Africa now had a first point of call, its own crisis architecture. Goodwill for the commodity shock, Patim Vernavat during COVID-19, and UCAFPA in response to the Ukraine crisis. Beyond crisis response, the bank fueled intra-African trade, integration, and empowerment. Afreximbank became the principal financier and partner to the AFCFTA Secretariat, helping the single market move from aspiration to operation. PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, matured into a working ecosystem. It launched the PAPS African Currency Marketplace and PAPS Card, the first Pan-African card scheme. The AFCFTA Adjustment Fund backed a fair transition to tariff-free trade. The Africa Trade Gateway digitized opportunity, connecting exporters, importers, and financiers through PAPS, Mansa, ATEX, TradeLink, and ATG Connect. In parallel, the first 4 editions of the Intra-African Trade Fair drew over 180,000 visitors and 6,600 exhibitors. Together, they generated more than $158 billion in deals. On the ground, the bank stood behind Africa's largest industrial achievements. Support to the Dangote refinery totaled $5.5 billion, the world's largest single train facility. It pushed self-sufficiency and value addition in energy. Through Afreximbank's decade-long $2 billion funding relationship with the RISE integrated industrial platforms, special economic zones from Gabon and Benin to Togo turned raw inputs into finished goods, cotton into textiles, timber into furniture, harvests into consumer products, minerals into higher value outputs. These SEZ investments transformed local economies, creating jobs, reducing poverty, and restoring dignity. Afreximbank also released a $450 million global credit facility for SEZs in Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, Malawi, and beyond. It is expected to generate $5 billion in exports and 170,000 jobs. To put Made in Africa on more shelves, the Africa Trade and Distribution Company took shape. It aggregated, branded, and distributed African goods, reinforced by national export trading companies. Africa's orange economy received a dedicated runway. The Creative Africa Nexus, CANEX, accelerated creative industries, with funding doubled to $2 billion. A planned $1 billion film fund through FEDER adds depth to that pipeline, backing talent, retaining intellectual property, and linking culture to industrialization. In Abuja, the $750 million 500-bed African Medical Center of Excellence is designed to stem the roughly $25 billion that leave the continent each year in medical tourism. Across value chains, African quality assurance centers are providing testing and certification. Collaboration with ARSO is advancing harmonized standards, making it easier for everyday goods to move across borders. Afreximbank as an institution also expanded in lockstep with its mission. Total assets and guarantees grew from under $6 billion in 2015 to over $43 billion by 2025. Revenues reached historic levels above $3.4 billion, with net income around $1 billion. Shareholders' funds rose from just over $1 billion to $7.5 billion, providing ballast when global finance looked away. Liquidity sources diversified too, including Panda and Samurai bonds. African resources climbed to roughly 30% of total liquidity, an international strategy to tap Africa's own savings for Africa's development. To meet specialized needs, Afreximbank evolved into a group with tailored mechanisms. FEDER began closing the continent's estimated $110 billion equity gap, investing in manufacturing, agribusiness, logistics, financial services, and digital infrastructure. Afrexinsure created a single entry point for specialty insurance. The Africa Project Preparation Fund focused on building bankable pipelines, most recently signing an agreement with the South African government expected to unlock $750 million in investment. And Afreximbank Africa Trade Centers established permanent hubs for dialogue, matchmaking, and deal-making, with new centers progressing from Barbados to Rwanda. The bridge to the diaspora also arose following the AU's 2008 recognition of the diaspora as Africa's 6th region. The bank helped translate aspiration into action, active in the Caribbean.
Our history is being written before our eyes, and we're looking forward to the new chapter. But without further ado, it is my honor and distinguished pleasure to invite Dr. Hassan Abdallah, Governor of the Central Bank of Egypt and Deputy Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Please, if you can come and make your remarks. There will be simultaneous interpretation in English, French, and Arabic. Excellency, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Your Excellencies, distinguished shareholders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to adopt the established protocol of the day. And first of all, other than my formal capacity, my heart also beats Africa. I'm a strong advocate for Africa and a believer of Afreximbank, its leadership, management, and staff. It is with great pride and profound sense of honor that I stand before you today to extend a warm welcome to all of our guests who have traveled from around Africa, the world, to join us in Cairo, the proud host of African Export-Import Bank. I would also like to relay His Excellency the Prime Minister welcome to all of you. We are gathered here for a momentous occasion, the investiture of Dr. George Olembe, the 4th President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the African Export-Import Bank, and the celebration of a remarkable institution that has shaped and continues to shape the course of Africa's economic destiny. This ceremony is more than a formal transition. It's a moment of continuity and renewal, one that underscores the unity purpose that defines our continent's collective pursuit of prosperity. Over the past 3 decades, Afrexim has evolved from a visionary idea into a world-class African institution, one that has consistently embodied excellence, innovation, and resilience. Guided by successive leaders, the bank stands at the center of Africa's transformation, financing trade, building industries, and unlocking the immense potential of intra-African commerce. Egypt is proud to be both a founding shareholder and a host of the bank's headquarters. Distinguished guests, more than serving as a source of essential resources, a hub of demographic growth, and a frontier for future markets, Africa offers a future labor force and consumer market that will drive global growth for decades. The African Continental Free Trade Area is unlocking new opportunities by creating the largest single market in the world. As the world faces shifting economic and geopolitical dynamics, Africa's integration, innovation, and resources make it a cornerstone of the 21st century global economy. And in Afrexim, we have an institution that is dedicated to realizing this potential. The bank has been at the forefront of supporting African development and driving the aspirations of Agenda 2063 and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement through landmark initiatives and projects, including, among others, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, the AFCFTA Adjustment Fund, the African Medical Centers of Excellence, the Afrexim Trade Facilitation Program, and the establishment of the industrial parks and special economic zones. The bank has also shown its systemic importance to the continent's resilience, responding in times of crisis, particularly through the COVID-19 pandemic, where its role was instrumental in mobilizing resources to stabilize African economies. These interventions affirm Afrexim's capacity to protect African economies from systemic shocks and demonstrate that African institutions can stand firmly on their own in moments of global turbulence and deliver for the continent. I therefore call on the shareholders and partners to support the capacity of Afrexim and our African multilateral financial institution to drive an African-led development agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity to also pay special tribute to Professor Benedict Orama, the outgoing president of the bank, and a man whose name has become synonymous with visionary leadership and unwavering dedication to Africa's development. Under his stewardship, Afrexim has risen to unparalleled heights, expanding its reach across Africa and the Caribbean, deepening its institutional impact and redefining how Africa engages with the global economy. Dr. Orama, allow me to wish you success in your new chapter and assure you of the support that you will always have from us. We also welcome with great optimism the new leadership of Afrexim under Dr. George Olimbi. Dr. Olimbi's long and distinguished service with the bank, his deep institutional knowledge, and his steadfast belief in Afrexim's purpose make him exceptionally well prepared to take on his noble responsibility and build on the legacy of his predecessors. His appointment represents both continuity and renewal. The assurance that the bank's founding values will continue to guide its evolution and rapidly changing. And George, I want you to rest confident and assured of the support not only of Egypt, but I am sure of all other shareholders, people in the room, to continue this journey and to have a better Africa. Thank you. So, Dr. George, we look forward to collaborating even more closely with you to advocate local mineral beneficiation and processing, the development of regional value chains, implementation of the AFCFTA, and the establishment of industrial infrastructure under your leadership. We are confident that Afrexim Bank will continue to deepen its contribution to Africa's development and champion African solutions to African challenges. I call on the shareholders to demonstrate the same unity in supporting the tenure as president as was shown when we appointed you. Through unity of purpose, we will surely deliver the Africa we want. Ladies and gentlemen, before I end my word, I would just like to express also appreciation to the management and staff of Afrexim Bank and the board of Afrexim Bank, whom I'm proud to be a member of. They have done a marvelous job, and I can see how hard they work, so I would like to give them my best and wish them also the best in the next tenure. And finally, as we gather here in Cairo for this ceremony, I would also like to warmly invite you to experience the spirit of Egypt beyond these walls, see the symbols of our shared heritage and values that also define Afrexim's resilience, creativity, and unwavering belief in our shared future. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for being a remarkable host country for Afrexim Bank. Madame Chinelo yesterday was saying that you're more than just a host country, you're a home to many of us here. So thank you so much, and thank you for stepping up as a central bank with working with Afrexim Bank's innovations, such as the central bank depository scheme, and the Egyptian central bank has always stepped up whenever the bank has needed it. Thank you for your support. May I now call on stage the Honorable Louis-Paul Motassé, Minister of Finance of the Republic of Cameroon, for goodwill remarks. Excellence. Bienvenue. Merci. Very well, thank you.
Distinguished members of government, Mr. President-elect of Afreximbank, Professor Orama, Chairman of the Board of Directors and outgoing Chairman of Afreximbank, distinguished representatives of the diplomatic corps and international organizations, distinguished business leaders, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to speak at this solemn investor ceremony, which marks both continuity and renewal within an institution that has become, over the years, a cornerstone of African economic development. May I first of all commend the Egyptian authorities for the quality of organization and their warm hospitality. The presence in this room of distinguished guests from across and beyond the continent is testament to the central role that Afreximbank now plays in the global financial and economic landscape. Before celebrating the future, may I express my heartfelt compliments to Professor Benedict Orama. 14 years, you have embodied a vision and a spirit that have made Afreximbank much more than just a bank, a driving force for African integration. Under your leadership, it has become a strategic ally for governments, a refuge in times of crisis, and a source of financial innovation that has opened up new horizons for Africa. For Cameroon, your actions have not been superficial. They have translated into concrete and decisive support. You have accompanied our development efforts, strengthened our resilience, and supported our ambitions. For example, the bank financed the development of the container terminal at the Douala Port Authority, strengthening our role as a regional hub and facilitating sub-regional trade. It brought light to our villages by investing in rural electrification, enabling more than 2,000 localities to access electricity. It has also boosted our public finances through several major operations. Alone in January 2024, to cover the infrastructure financing of our national development strategy. Then, in July 2025, a major innovation with more than 300 million euro injected into our fungible treasury bonds. Finally, in July 2025, more than 380 million euros through a direct loan bank, a direct local bank loan with its guarantee. In this regard, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the President of the Republic, Head of State, His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya, and the entire nation, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to you. Your name will forever be associated with Africa's march towards economic autonomy. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today marks the beginning of a new era with the investiture of Dr. George Elombe as head of Afreximbank. Mr. Chairman, your election is not merely an institutional transition. It is a promise, a source of hope, an expression of the trust that Africa has placed in your hands. I had the honor of receiving you in Yaoundé the day after your election, and I was struck by the clarity of your vision to make African finance an instrument of structural transformation, mobilize new resources, boost our private sector, and give Africa the means to speak on equal terms with the rest of the world. Mr. Chairman, your investiture comes at a time when the international context is experiencing profound changes. African economies are operating in an uncertain global environment marked by slowing global growth, persistent inflation, high commodity prices, high debt levels, geopolitical tensions, and the effects of climate change. Added to this are structural challenges specific to our continent, namely excessive dependence on commodity exports, a weak industrial base, inadequate infrastructure, and constraints on access to finance. Yet, at the center of these challenges lie immense opportunities: a young and dynamic population, considerable agricultural potential, an ongoing digital transition, and a shared desire to build an integrated and prosperous Africa. Afreximbank, through its mission and experience, remains a key actor in transforming these challenges into development opportunities. In Cameroon, our commitment is evidenced by the implementation of the National Development Strategy adopted under the distinguished leadership of the President of the Republic, Head of State, His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya. This strategy seeks to industrialize our economy, modernize our basic infrastructure, improve the well-being of our people, diversify our sources of growth, and create jobs for young people. It is based on 4 fundamental pillars: structural transformation and economic diversification, human capital development and social welfare, promotion of employment and economic inclusion, and after, governance and public service performance. However, considerable challenges remain. Mobilizing sufficient resources to finance our investment program, resilience to external shocks, controlling the cost of debt, modernizing the productive sector, and effectively integrating young people and women into the growth dynamic. This is why partnerships with institutions such as Afreximbank are crucial. They enable us to diversify our sources of financing, boost the private sector, and support the economic transformation we all cherish. Distinguished guests, Cameroon is now a country that is standing tall, resilient, and resolutely focused on the future. Our economy is experiencing sustainable growth, estimated at more than 4% in 2025, and is set to strengthen in the coming years. Our public debt, controlled at around 42% of GDP, remains well below the 70% threshold set by the Central Africa Economic and Monetary Community, proof of our rigor and prudence. In addition to this macroeconomic strength, Cameroon has a geostrategic advantage. It is the crossroads of Central Africa, open to the Gulf of Guinea, with modern ports in Douala and Kribi, and immense potential in agriculture, mining, energy, and industry. Our structural reforms, ranging from the modernization of the tax framework to the digitalization of public services, are making our environment more attractive and competitive every day. We therefore call on Afreximbank to stand by us. Together, we can transform this potential into wealth, these hopes into reality, and make our partnership part of a dynamic of shared prosperity for the whole of Africa. Dr. George Elombe, your career path is an outstanding illustration of the best Africa has to offer. Intelligence put to work, rigor combined with vision, and loyalty to values rooted in openness to the world. You belong to a generation of leaders who do not merely accompany change, but anticipate and shape it. Your election is more than a mark of confidence. It is a call for you to take bold action, an invitation to raise Afreximbank to an ever greater position in the international financial structure. As Cameroonians, knowing that you are a fine product of Cameroon's educational system, we feel a legitimate sense of pride. But beyond this national identity, your election symbolizes African excellence, recognized talent, and the determination of an Africa that is fully embracing its destiny. It also sends a message of hope to our youth. It shows that through hard work, rigor, and perseverance, Africa can produce leaders capable of transforming its future. My dear George, my dear friend, your appointment to the helm of this Pan-African institution goes beyond personal achievement. It embodies the legacy, unwavering commitment, inspiring leadership, and influential diplomacy championed by the President of the Republic. It also reflects the recognition of your peers and their confidence in your expertise. Mr. Chairman, you embody these ambitions and capable Africa, which is not content to simply receive, but reaches out to its children and partners. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I urge this distinguished gathering to commend the achievements of Professor Benedict Orama and to wish to George Elombi, the new chairman of Afreximbank, every success. May this term of office be marked by greater innovation, sustainable prosperity, and enhanced economic integration for the development of our continent. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Minister. They say Cameroon is Africa in miniature.
Yes.
So, but we know that your countryman here, fellow countryman, embodies all of Africa and is a staunch Pan-Africanist as well. Thank you so much for lending him to the bank for the past 30 years and many more years, I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let us welcome on stage now Her Excellency, Madame Selma Malika Hadidi, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission.
Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Excellency Mr. Hassan Abdallah, Deputy Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, our host and the home of Afreximbank, Professor Benedict Orama, outgoing President of Afreximbank, Dr. George Elombi, President-elect of Afreximbank, Excellencies, Ministers, here present, former heads of state, my brother, Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of AFCFTA, members of the board and family of Afreximbank, distinguished guests, all protocols duly observed. It is a profound honor and a privilege to join you personally on this special occasion. I convey warm greetings from the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and from the entire African Union family in Addis Ababa and from the entire continent. We are pleased to stand with you at this significant milestone in the life of Afreximbank as we celebrate the seamless transition to a new chapter of leadership within this esteemed African institution. across Africa, when a baobab tree has stood firm through seasons of wind and storm, the village gathers to celebrate its shelter and strength. Today, we gather in that same spirit as one Pan-African family to honor service, continuity, excellence, and our shared continental destiny. Afreximbank has, on many occasions, worked hand in hand with the African Union as a trusted partner in advancing the aspirations of our Union and the vision of Agenda 2063. Yesterday, when I entered this very same hall, one telling thing captured my attention. It made me proud as it illustrates the Pan-African spirit, and even more, I would say DNA of Afreximbank and of its leadership. It is these two flags standing side by side. It says it all. Excellencies, earlier this year, as the African Union also embarked on its own new chapter of leadership, Afreximbank stood with us in solidarity, offering invaluable support and fraternity, the way it did consistently and increasingly for several years now. Suffice to mention the growing support and partnership of Afreximbank with the African Union, its commission and organs in the framework of several important processes, projects, or emergencies: AFCFTA, COPS, G20, IATF, or COVID-19, to list just a few, and I will expand a little bit more on that later. It is thus only fitting, in the spirit of reciprocity, solidarity, mutual support and appreciation, that defines our African values, that we stand with you today. To bid farewell with gratitude, to welcome with enthusiasm, and to commend work that has not only been done, but done with excellence. Excellencies, our continent continues to navigate complex and evolving challenges, from issues of peace and security to the imperative of inclusive and sustainable development, economic resilience, institutional strengthening, and enhanced global influence. In responding to these challenges, three things matter: vision, partnership, and strong institutions. Since the signing of our cooperation agreement in 2018, Afreximbank has proven to be an indispensable partner in driving Africa's integration, industrialization, and economic transformation. Working jointly with the African Union and our member states, Afreximbank has contributed to reducing barriers to intra-African trade, expanding trade-enabling infrastructure, and operationalizing the instruments that give concrete meaning to the African continental free trade area. Through this cooperation, Afreximbank has helped shift the paradigm of Africa's economic outlook, fostering value addition, strengthening industrial capacity, and advancing African agency and its voice within the global economy. Africa has never been short of thinkers, but history does not reward ideas alone. It rewards delivery. In this regard, Professor Benedict Orama stands it all. And stands tall. His tenure has been marked by courage, humility, unwavering resolve, and the rare ability to convert vision into tangible impact. He has been a leader for whom barriers are challenges to be overcome and possibilities to be expanded. He is known across our continent simply as the man who makes things happen. Professor Orama, my dear brother, we thank you. Thank you for your leadership, your service, and your unshakable belief in the boundless potential of Africa. Thank you for your openness to partnerships with the African Union and its organs, and for demonstrating what becomes possible when the conviction is matched with competence and action that are anchored in a Pan-African vision. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not an end, it is a relay, and this afternoon, the torch is passed. To you, Dr. George Elombi, the incoming president, we extend our heartfelt congratulations. You inherit not a vessel awaiting direction, but a strong, visionary, and respected institution, one to which you have already made significant and instrumental contributions. You assume this leadership at a defining time for our continent. We are confident that you will carry forward this legacy with distinction and shepherd Afreximbank into its next era of excellence. As we say in Arabic, Antum khayra khalaf li khayri salaf. In English, you are the best successor to the best predecessor. The African Union looks forward to deepening our collaboration with you as we embark on the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063 under the banner of the Decade of Acceleration. I, too, have recently begun my mandate, and I extend my hand of partnership to you, that together, institution to institution, brother to sister, we may advance our shared mission for the Africa we want. As I look around this room, I see powerful reminder that mandates evolve, but service to Africa endures. In many of our traditions, we do not mourn transitions, we honor them. We celebrate those who have served. We embrace those who will lead, we believe in them, and we affirm that the mission transcends any individual, institution, or term of office. Leadership may change, but our continental purpose remains constant and shared. Today is therefore not merely a farewell and a welcome. It is a celebration of continuity of purpose. To our ministers, captains of industry, development partners, and all present, this work belongs to all of us. The road ahead demands discipline, unity of effort, and relentless focus on implementation. The Africa we want will not be realized through goodwill alone. It will be built through the decisions we take, the commitments we honor, and the institutions we strengthen. To Professor Orama, we thank you and we salute you. To Dr. Elombi, we stand with you, we believe in you, and we have trust in you. To the Afreximbank family, forward, ever forward. The foundation has been well led, the vision remains clear, and the future demands our collective resolve. Let us continue to work, united in purpose, as we chart Africa's path to prosperity. Thank you for your kind attention.
Merci, Excellence, pour votre intervention. May we welcome on stage a builder, a leader in his own right, and a true captain of industry, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, for Goodwill remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chairman of the occasion, Honorable Wale Edun, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, the Central Bank Governor of Egypt and also Deputy Prime Minister, President and Chairman of Afreximbank, Professor Benedict Orama and his lovely wife, the incoming President, Dr. George Ilombi and his lovely wife. I would like to stand on the already established protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by congratulating the incoming President, Dr. George Ilombi, on attaining the leadership of this very important institution in the development trajectory of Africa. Dr. Ilombi, next year will mark the 30th year of your committed service and dedication to the continent through the work you have carried out at the bank. You have witnessed this evolution in your own words from a staff of 20 driver, including the president, to what it has grown into today. Afreximbank has, in the last 10 years, grew its size almost eightfold from $6 billion operation to about $44 billion. Congratulations. As a result of this growth, it has aggressively impacted how business is being transacted on the continent and giving entrepreneurs like me and many others a great hope. Mr. President-elect, you have been a part of Afreximbank's growth story and equally important, served as a critical member of the leadership team that contributed in driving this growth. It therefore gladdens my heart that the shareholders displayed great wisdom in deciding to entrust its future in your hands based on merits. Knowing fully well your history, dedication, and passion for Africa's transformation, your role in leading the bank's COVID-19 crisis response, covering both Africa and the Caribbean, was amongst the few bright spots at a difficult time for us all. It displayed Africa's ability to handle crisis and should be a textbook case study on how organizations on the continent should respond to global crises of such scale and magnitude. Indeed, as actors on the continent, we are well aware of the challenges that oftentimes delay success or require extraordinary efforts to overcome. But having known you over the years, your drive, boldness, commitment, and steady disposition are perfectly suited to lead the new chapter of this great institution. Mr. President-elect, you continue emphasis on production and processing on the continent, as you have mentioned severally. It's not only reassuring, but is the primary pathway that will enhance not only improvement in trade terms for all the nations, but equally provide a security blanket economically and socially for our ever-increasing youthful population and potential restiveness. This will help us to stop exporting jobs out of the continent and importing poverty into our continent. As the Dangote Group, our Vision 2030 strategic plan projects that we will be a 100 billion organization in the next 5 years. However, having you now at the leadership of this great institution, I'm sure our target will be made much sooner based on our existing great partnership. We must challenge ourselves on the continent to set our lofty goals. I am convinced that your collaborative style will lead not just the bank, but the continent to the promised land. As Africans, we are very proud of your emergence and the quality of persons that serve on the leadership team of this great institution. It signals stability, consistency, and a talent pool that's rich and battle-tested. In closing, this race isn't yours to run alone. You have my personal support and assurances that at the Dangote Group, we shall be by your side as you lead this new chapter of Afreximbank. Congratulations and thank you.
So Dr. Olombi's got plans to grow the balance sheet to $250 billion. We'll see who achieves it first. Will it be the Dangote Group or will it be Afreximbank? So I invite Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, for our final Goodwill remarks. Prime Minister, thank you.
Good morning to all. Good afternoon, sorry. It is morning in the Caribbean. Let me at this time recognize His Excellency Hassan Abdullah, Deputy Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Also, allow me to recognize former heads of states who are here with us this afternoon. Allow me to recognize, of course, our outgoing President and Chairman, Professor Benedict Orama, and also to recognize his wife. Allow me to recognize at this particular time as well the incoming President and Chair, who I'll mention shortly, and also his wife as well. And to all those who are here from organizations and who are leaders in their own right, ladies and gentlemen, all. I speak today not just as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, but I also speak as the incoming chair of CARICOM, Caribbean Community, which is about 15 independent countries. It is with a profound honor, therefore, to join you in this historic moment, the investiture of Dr. George Elombi as President of the African Export-Import Bank. The investiture of Dr. George Elombi as President and Chairman of the Board of the African Export-Import Bank must be marked by an occasion like this that is significant. So therefore, on the behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, I extend our warmest congratulations to you, Dr. Lemboy, but also on the behalf of the Caribbean community. Your elevation to this high office is a recognition of your decades of service, dedication, and vision. You have been part of Afreximbank's remarkable journey for nearly 3 decades or more, helping to shape it into one of the most dynamic financial institutions on the African continent. Today, you assume leadership at a time when Africa and the Caribbean are charting a new course, one defined by trade, innovation, and shared prosperity. Under your guidance, we are confident that Afreximbank will continue to expand its influence and deepen its partnerships across the Atlantic. For us in the Caribbean, this moment carries deep meaning. We see Afreximbank as a bridge, connecting Africa and her diaspora in tangible, transformative ways. Through initiatives like the Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, we are forging a new era of cooperation that transcends history and geography. We look forward to working with you to strengthen trade and investment, build resilience in smaller states, and empower our entrepreneurs and youth. Together, we can advance a model of development rooted in inclusivity, sustainability, and shared destiny. Dr. Lemboy, as you take the helm, you carry not only the confidence of Africa, but also the admiration and support of the Caribbean and the Caribbean community. I therefore will give one anecdote in the Caribbean and how a bank played a fundamental role in our development when everyone else thought it was impossible. The Caribbean, like Africa, most of us were colonies of European powers. We were treated just like Africa was treated, robbed of resources, and then be told that we were not worthy of development. In St. Kitts and Nevis, the smallest country in CARICOM, our country was a country that was based on sugar economy. It was run by external forces and governments. Our people were extremely poor, disadvantaged, and lived in abject poverty. Our country had the worst poverty in the Caribbean region as a result of this exploitation. However, we moved from being just a colony to a statehood, a stage just before independence. However, the industries were still controlled by external powers. In our country, we had a gentleman by the name of Sir Edmund Lawrence. He had been a graduate of the London School of Economics. And instead of staying in London, he decided to return home to St. Kitts and Nevis to set up a banking institution. All of the big businesses and external businesses, of course, their banking institutions of choice were the foreign banks. We had from Britain, we had from the United States of America, and other places from the north. And they did not cater for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. They were told that their money was not enough. They were not valuable enough. And so our people used to save their monies under their beds, by the sides of their tables, and I'm sure that that took place in Africa. No access to banking. And so Sir Edmund Lawrence took it upon himself to establish a bank, something he was told was impossible. He was in the smallest country in the region, and the people he catered for had no real resources. So he said that I will call this bank the penny bank, because the big banks don't want to accept your penny we will accept your pennies. And so my great-great-grandmother's mother, my great-great-grandfathers, they then had a bank where they could bank. But that's not the end of the story. He was extremely innovative. And where they told him it was impossible, he made it possible. But to end this story is to say that we in that sub-region, we developed the largest indigenous bank, being the smallest country as a result of that. It became a multi-billion-dollar bank. And they asked the question, how can such a small country develop such a large bank? And so in those days, it was challenging to get loans for financing, to finance industry and development. They said that we did not have enough resources to pay back their loans, but we created our own national bank. And so we started to develop as a country. And so we developed to the point where now we are considered a high-income country, and today they are saying to us that your income is too high to get concessionary loans. So on one hand, we were too poor to get your financing because we could not pay for it. We find ways to develop ourselves, and now you are telling us that our income is too high, and therefore we cannot lend you our resources. What's the moral of the story? That no one will come to save us. We have to save ourselves. And so I say to the new president, the new chairman, as you're coming, that you will hear many stories like these. That places in Africa that need development, you will be told that the balance sheet does not look perfect. It does not look right. But we have to be innovative, and we have to make possible what's impossible, or seemingly impossible, possible. So, Mr. President, I know you're taking over from a man who has made a lot of seemingly impossible things possible. He has connected Africa and the Caribbean in a tangible way. And so to President Orama, thank you for your service. And as you take up this new mantle, my only words to you are, it will require steel, innovation, and to keep the people always at the center of what you do. And remember always, you have the support, the leaders of the Caribbean and the Caribbean community. May your tenure be one of success. May your tenure help to advance not just the African continent, but people of African descent throughout this world. I wish you well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you for embodying the spirit of global Africa. We are truly one. And to exemplify this, we've got a brief performance right now from our brother from Barbados, Adrian Green, who will give us a spoken word performance. He's a poet, performer, and spoken word artist. Adrian Green, please. Round of applause.
Masa el-Khia, brothers and sisters. It is not only because we are here in Egypt that I want to relate the progress of the Afreximbank to the process and the progress of historic African civilizations, to progressions occurring in steps like the engineering of the step pyramids of Zosa progressing into the great pyramids of Giza. African engineering has long endured and enabled structures, infrastructures, systems of sustainability and support. Similarly, but much faster, Afrexim ingenuity in financing paves the way to empowerment through infrastructure, hospitals, factories, power plants, schools, and ports. The courts of history show how ancient Ghana, Mali, Songhai were each part of the progression of African civilizations over time, an extended tradition of intra-African cultural economic activity along the trans-Saharan trade lines. A tradition we can track southward through Monomatapa and Great Zimbabwe, and today in hindsight, and looking forward, we can see that the deserts should never divide us, nor the oceans, nor the seas. That African civilization will be weak if wealthy, but not unified or too top-heavy. That intra-African trade is the destination and the way paved by global African unity. History still to be written must bear the testimony that Africa has set itself free through these 3 cycles of Afreximbank presidents and beyond, standing resolute with determination on their faces through new free trade zones and industrial spaces. Africa's base is its people, and the lineage of leaders, thinkers, doers, believers in the potential of their own people, scattered globally like seeds. We have been sprouting for 400 plus years, enduring the absurdities of colonially induced inter-African division and fear. Undeterred, undetoured, now the vision is clear. Africans and Africa has fruit to bear, trees of prosperity to cultivate, waves of wealth to propagate. Contrary to common sentiment, Africa unified is rising around a common center. It is now common sense that the best suited practices for Africa to be suited in are the ones designed by Africans for Africans, which fit better than the so-called international best practices, one-size-fit-all jackets and tethers, jackets and ties, which fit more like nooses, leashes, haute couture, colonial-era designs. We have found and continue to find tailor-made bespoke solutions suited to creating mutually beneficial ties that bind. Can your mind conceive of the potential in a periodic table of nations, 55 atomistic countries with infinite diasporic energies merging into multinational molecular entities with an infinite covalent compound economies bonded by a common history? With global African consciousness as the foundational element in a resolution of a fatally fragmented predicament, together on a long march to victory out of the Mangamizi. African independence is a journey through landmarks of political struggle, economic jungles, towards a peace and productivity and prosperity for the sake of its people. May Afreximbank continue to make the way for those who have the talent and skills and wills. From Barbados to Brazil, from Cairo to the Cape, standing unafraid, dedicated to making Made in Africa the marker of excellence. Never let us forget that African self-confidence and an African self-concept are integral assets in this delicate dance of developmental finance. I ask, what can stop and contain a continent committed and confident in developing the foundation that works, the relational networks that work to facilitate the flow, the emergence, the birth of this era of African investment and trade across the earth. Africa always, Africa forget forever, African to African first, making blessings out of borders that were intended to be a curse, across barriers and obstacles, country by country, city to city, from capital to capital, with banking dams that direct the flow of capital like an economic river providing power, economic electricity, a current that flows in the current day towards the idea of a common African currency. Let the world come and see. A credit operation as vast as the oceans and the seas, a financial Nile or Zambezi, a river where exports and imports flow back and forth, on the banks of which global African institutions and entities grow and flourish, flower and bloom. Boom. African industry has entered the room. Boom. Let the world observe Africa rising as it mushrooms, like a Pharaoh resurrected, rising from the tomb, in grace and poise and love. Because Africa, we love you. Africa, we love you. Africa, we love you. 'Cause now we understand how they've pushed and shoved you into the dimly lit corners of their history books. But we know the truth 'cause we've searched and looked to lift our minds off of Europe's hook. And some still don't understand how much strength and willpower it took to get from under their spells and propaganda. And now them a wonder how we so proud and we daishikis and we booba. We let them know we were orphaned but we found our mother. We've been reunited with our lost sisters and brothers. Africa stretches forth her hands to her prodigal sons and daughters, scattered across the waters in this great disaster that was authored. But I won't say the word, 'cause they tried to kill every last semblance of African spirit and skill. But destiny must unfold, prophecy must fulfill. Emancipation is a mountain, it's a real steep hill. And to get to the top for we is such a thrill. That's why from Cape Town to Cairo, Barbados to Brazil, no matter where we were taken, we are African still, and we will heal those emotional scars, and we will reclaim everything that's ours, and we will redeem our ancestors, and we will retake our place amongst the stars. Africa, we love you. Better days must come, we see the sun shining from above you. The storm clouds are moving from above you. And glorious things again will be spoken of you. Like cradle of humanity, birthplace of civilization, bringer of some sanity to these crazy modern nations. Sankofa is the only way out of this present situation. Looking backward to go forward to our future destination. Our relation to our history must be more than information. Emancipation, it's a feeling, it's an overwhelming emotion. Inspiring devotion and a commitment to undo the programming that they put us through. Africa is ancient, but we must experience it new. Africans, be persistent. and to thine own culture be true. Let our common experience keep us together like glue with this ancient social science that they call Ubuntu. Excuse me if I get a little hype, but I'm a part of a place that they try to wipe out of all historical sight. And now my stories come to light, and all those wrongs I come to right, with songs of redemption and words to fight the oppression that has we gripped so tight. But this call, it ain't nothing fresh nor new. The prophet has already said to you, Africans unite, yeah, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're moving to our father's land. Wherever you come from on the continent, the connections are evident. The retentions are a testament to ties that couldn't be broken nor bent. And even if you've come from far, we have to remember who we are. The scattered fragments of our souls let us recollect. And never again should we forget that we are Canaan, we are Cush, Al-Kebulan, and Kemet. We are Yoruba, and Hausa, and Igbo, and Mandingo. We are Ashanti, Fulani, Wolof, Serer, and Koromanti. We are Ga, we are Fa, Ethiopian, Khoisan, and Dinka. We are Kikuyu, and Zulu, Madabele, Maasai, and Bantu. Africa, we are you. And I've waited for so long to say it in an African tongue, so people indulge me. I want to say it in Kiswahili. Nakupenda Africa, Africa, I love ya.
Poet, performer, and spoken word artist, our brother from Barbados, Adrian Green. So now we move to what you are here to witness today, which is the investiture and the taking of oath. The rules provide that the president-designate should take an oath of office in the presence of the board of directors and the chairperson of the AGM. I invite the chairperson of the general meeting, Mr. Wale Edun, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Federal Republic of Nigeria, to come forward to say a few remarks before administering the investiture.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I must say right from the start, I'm delighted, particularly delighted, that I'm here in person to oversee this all-important and historic investiture. Thank you. Your Excellencies, heads of state, and representatives of heads of state here present, including our brother from St. Kitts and St. Nevis, the Prime Minister, Hassan Abdallah, Governor, Central Bank of Egypt and Deputy Prime Minister, the Deputy Chairperson, OAU, distinguished shareholders of Afreximbank, of course, Professor and Mrs. Benedict Orama, the outgoing President and Chairperson of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank, Dr. George Elombe and Mrs. Elombe, President-designate Afreximbank and current Executive Vice President for Governance, Corporate and Legal Services. May I recognize Mr. Christopher Edodu and Mr. Jean-Louis Ekra, the former Afreximbank presidents. members of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank and the group entities, the heads of international organizations and corporate leaders, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, Deji Adeleke, form part of the strong Nigerian contingent. And of course, may I please indulge me while I recognize the former Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Nnamdi Sambo, as well as the former Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Bukola Saraki. At this point, let me say all protocols duly observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press. I would like to first of all pass on the warm felicitations and congratulations of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and indeed the good people of Nigeria for this all-important investiture ceremony. 4 months ago, at the 32nd Afreximbank annual meetings, it was my distinct honor and privilege to serve as the chairperson, and I remain so at this historic moment, a pivotal occasion marking the unanimous appointment of Dr. George Elombe as the 4th President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank. And you know, this appointment is not merely a change in leadership. It is the dawn of a new era, a moment that reaffirms Afreximbank's central role in the shaping of Africa's financial sovereignty and its trade future, and indeed, as Alhaji Aliko said, its manufacturing future. Today, in accordance with the bank's charter, we gather to celebrate the official assumption of office of a new president. As chair of the annual general meeting, I extend my warmest welcome to all our esteemed guests, and I express my heartfelt gratitude to you all for being here, not just today, but even yesterday. Your presence does testify the enduring coalition that we have built, a coalition that's grounded in our shared vision of Africa's future development and its prosperity. Before we look ahead, as we surely will in a second, allow me to pause just for a moment to try to pay tribute, as we have been doing for months before now, and even as we did yesterday, to my friend, my brother, the remarkable Professor Benedict Orama. I must confess, it's a bit of a risky task, because how you encapsulate a decade and more of service in just a few sentences. But I will try, and I will just say that, look, over the past decade, under your visionary leadership, Afreximbank has not only financed trade across the continent, it has reshaped Africa's trade architecture and repositioned the continent in the global economic arena, from Benin to Togo, Chad to Cote d'Ivoire, and beyond. Your legacy, Professor, is indelibly written in our continent's development history. And we all know. We know the achievements, PABS, AFCA, Transit Credit Scheme, Intra-African Trade, the 800 million facility for special economic zones, and so on and so forth. These initiatives have redefined how Africa does business. And under your stewardship, Afrexim supported the continent to weather, we know, so many storms: COVID, commodity price collapse, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and even the current shifting global trade regime. Through it all, with vision, discipline, courage, and unshakable belief in Africa's future, you led from the front. Professor Rama, You have been a blessing to Afreximbank. You have been a blessing to the African continent. You have been a blessing to Africans in diaspora. Even as we celebrate, we must be mindful that challenges lie ahead. And this gathering is therefore not just ceremonial, it is a convergence of purpose, a reaffirmation of our common dream to build a prosperous, integrated, and competitive Africa. And so, it is with immense pride and optimism that I extend on behalf of the board, our shareholders, and the people of Africa, our heartfelt congratulations to Dr. George Elombi. You are no stranger to Afreximbank. You now assume the mantle at a defining juncture, a time when Africa's destiny is being rewritten through resilience and innovation. Your appointment represents continuity, it represents renewal, a seamless transition from the solid foundation laid by your predecessor sitting right next to you here, and a bold leap towards the future we envisage. Indeed, this is one of those rare moments when the universe aligns for Africa's progress. Mr. President, your ascension is a testament to the founding philosophy that inspired the great institution. You are called not just to lead a bank, but to steward a vision of self-reliant, integrated, and prosperous Africa. So, as I bring my remarks to a close, I will, in accordance with the charter of the bank, administer the oath of office. I respectfully invite Dr. George Elombi to join me to take the oath of office and then subsequently to give us his remarks. Dr. George Elombi, please.
Right out of Babylon, and we're going to our how good and how pleasant it would be.
So, without much further ado, the oath of office, I will say it and then, of course, you will repeat. I, George Elombi, appointed President of the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, at the 32nd Annual General Meeting of Shareholders held on 28th June 2025, solemnly declare and undertake before the Chairman of the General Meeting and before the members of the Board of Directors that I will abide by the provisions of the Agreement for the establishment of the African Export-Import Bank, its charter, and rules and regulations, and that I will discharge my duties and functions as laid down therein with loyalty, discretion, and conscience, and I will regulate my conduct as President with the interest of the bank only in view.
I, George Elombi, appointed President of the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, at the 32nd Annual Meeting of Shareholders held on the 28th of June 2025 in Abuja, solemnly declare and undertake before the Chairman of the Annual General Meeting and before the members of the Board of Directors that I will abide by the provisions of the Agreement for the Establishment of the African Export-Import Bank its charter and rules and regulations, and that I will discharge my duties and functions as laid down therein with loyalty, with discretion and conscience, and I will regulate my conduct as president with the interests of the bank only in view. So, thank you, Chairman. Now that the oath is done, may I also add with the interest of Africa in view. So help me, Africa.
So we need you to sign the formal document, and alongside the President-designate and now President, we are inviting Mr. Gerald Chihota on behalf of the Secretary of the Board, who will bear witness to the proceedings. This is the pen that you... Gerald, please. Gerald? First secretary. Then we'll have another round of photos with Gerald. And may I invite the board of directors of the Afreximbank to join on stage for the group photo, please. The board of directors may join us, please. Get together the board, please, for the group photo. Get closer together. I'm on each other. Have a photo of all the board members, please. Thank you. So if we can... So we're going to do the group photo. If you can start looking at the cameramen and ladies. Thank you. You can all start looking at the cameramen, ladies, please. You want to be in the So now I'm going to invite the former presidents to join me on stage, please. Mr. Jean-Louis Ekra, Mr. Dodu, please, if you can join us on stage. Yeah, it's been good. All the presidents are coming. Dr. Ebi Elombi, you're next on stage. If you can join us on stage, please. presence, if we can. Thank you. Président. Dr. Lombi and Dr. Ebi Lombi. Join us on stage. We'll have a family photo. Chairperson of the African Union, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, His Excellency also our special guest, Président Macky Sall, si vous voulez nous joindre, and the Central Bank Governor of Egypt, please, if you can join us on stage for a final photo. And the Minister of Finance, absolutely. Central Bank Governor, if you can please join us. Yes, and the Minister of Cameroon, absolutely. So next, if I can ask the Can I call His Excellency Wamkele Mene to also join this picture, please? This photo. Your Excellency, please join us on stage. If I can ask the SVP and the EVPs present to present them, to get ready and come on stage, please. So the SVP, Dr. Dennis Denyer, and the EVPs as well. Hi from Madam Canayo, please join us. Engines in the Afreximbank room, the EVPs and SVP. So may we give another round of applause as we invite we are inviting the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the African Export-Import Bank, Dr. George Elombi, to make his inaugural address.
Thank you very much, MC. And now that the pictures are over, maybe I should tell you in a few minutes. The chairman was very severe. He said he wouldn't give me as much time as you did yesterday. Let me in 20 minutes tell you what it is that we plan to do in the following 5 to 10 years. But before I do so, perhaps I should confirm that I have adopted in full the protocols which the chairman, Minister Idun, had over here. Thank you very much, Chairman. Seeing is believing. We told very many participants and delegates and inquirers that you will be here to apply the oath so that I could become the president, and I was very confident of it. But they chose to believe that you were in another part of the planet, maybe with your ancestors, but it seems to have been the choice of your ancestors that you come back here. So long live our chairman, long live Africa's development, long live our trade. And we were also yesterday, Chairman, while you were traveling here, captivated by an extraordinary performance of the same Mansa Musa group, which you must have witnessed in Ghana and in Nigeria. They are dedicated to telling Africa's story in the way that Africans would want it told. We owe them our thanks for taking us down memory lane and reminding us of the greatness of the African continent and its people. Musa Keita was celebrated as the wealthiest man in human history. He embodied a timeless truth that we possess human spirit and the resources to build a prosperous continent. So, first, number one, if there is any right that we as Africans cannot and we must not never claim, that right we should not claim is the right to remain poor, for we were never poor. That's why you're gathered here today to witness and endorse what the transfer of leadership, and beyond that, what exceptional leadership can do. Orama's legacy may not be framed or defined by the historic wealth of Musa Keita, but by two things just as profound as Musa Keita's wealth and the faith that took Musa Keita traveling from Niani in Guinea to the Arabian desert. Orama's legacy is a different kind of wealth, a different form of African resilience. It is the wealth that inspires Africans to action, the spirit that ignites hope, and the bold, courageous leadership that demonstrates how our aspirations can be transformed into tangible achievements. These achievements, Mr. Chairman, also involved three other groups whose contribution I would like to emphasize. But let me say thank you to Professor Orama most directly. Okay, thanks very much. But we had three other groups of people we haven't said much of in the last 2 days. First, the shareholders, most of you gathered in here, the owners of this great institution. You have made extraordinary sacrifices. These sacrifices are long, a little too long to enumerate. Your last major sacrifice, the one you did, putting aside for a moment your decision to appoint me as president, was the $2.4 billion capital injection you made 4 years ago. That represents more than 92% of the $2.6 billion you promised. That is a resounding success for two reasons. First, you made the contributions at a time of severe economic shock, when other priorities, important economic and social priorities, were calling for your attention. Second, you have completed your contributions over 1 year before the expiry date. There is no more powerful a message, there is no more powerful a way to convey your determination to see this institution survive. Well, we must thank you, shareholders, the African taxpayer who established this institution. Another group is your staff, the people you trained, as the Minister of Finance of Cameroon said a minute ago, those you trained in your institutions of education, those institutions that produced the like of Professor Orama and Chandi and the others. In his farewell message to the staff, Professor Orama stated that a general is only as good as his officers and soldiers. That's the case for us. You gave us the best of your nationals. And although at the bank they recognize that it's a very special privilege to serve your cause, that they are amongst a very special few, a select few, I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for their extraordinary sense of sacrifice. Thank you very much, my good old friends. But just in case you think I'll leave the credit committee without those very tough questions, I'll still be there. But, distinguished invitees, the board of directors is another group. They have served their institution for some time and for a long time, and I have served that institution too. At management level, we would like to thank you for the quality of the men and women you appoint to the board. I see this not just as one of the platitudes you would hear as you go from place to place. I see this because in 30 years in the bank, and I could go a bit further, Mr. Dodo is still there if I am wrong, we were used to open contradictions, so he's free to contradict me right now as he sits. He created the institution. We have had the best set of directors that the African continent has ever given to any of its institutions. They are your eyes and your ears, the guiding spirits of what you want this institution to be. We are fortunate to have had them. Their understanding of the challenges facing the continent is just as extraordinary as the creativity in trying to tell us what path to adopt. Unless they saw the urgency in the COVID interventions, I can assure you all the determination of Professor Orama, the nights of strategy we had in management would have gone to naught. They understood it, and when the staff papers were presented to them, it took only a few days, 3 days, a few hours for a few calls for them to become convinced that their continent was in need of a very drastic intervention. They're all seated over there, the ladies and gentlemen on my right-hand side. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the staff you meet on the corridors when you come for the board meetings. I'd like to thank you for the support you give to us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the bank has had a legacy. I'll spend a little time on that, just 2 minutes, if you'd permit, Mr. Chairman. I know you confined my time. And we've spent these days talking about the legacy. The institution you created 32 years ago has achieved much. At the board meeting on Thursday, President Orama outlined some of the achievements of the last 10 years only, of just the last 10 years. The total assets and guarantees grew more than 8-fold. Chairman, you did mention that itself a few minutes ago. And today, they stand at $43.5 billion. That's as much as any other African institution would have in the continent as loan and advances. And there's perhaps none. Total revenues also rose 7-fold, $3.2 billion in 10 years. Net income amounted to $1 billion at the end of 2024, and a 700% increase from the level of 10 years ago. In total capital generation and very strong support of shareholders has brought in additional equity. That saw your funds rise from $1 billion in September 2015 to $7.5 billion in April of this year. That leaves you with a callable capital reaching $4.5 billion from $450 million in 2015. The bank has created subsidiaries, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, which is located in Rwanda, Afreximbank, and others. They are becoming additional sources of revenues for the bank. So contrary to the view which is going out there, we suggest that we're wasting your funds, creating subsidiaries, diversifying, mission creep, left, right, and center. We actually are creating institutions that are building onto the capital base that you will need for the level of the interventions that this continent calls for. COVID interventions, investment in export processing zones, refineries, and medical centers, the AFCTA, and the Youth Creative Agenda, CANEX, our own approach on how best to reach Africa's flourishing youth, the Pan-African Trade Fair. Those are some of the achievements of the institution since creation. My first commitment to you, shareholders, my very first commitment to you, therefore, is to preserve those achievements. But with a view to the future, this moment too is an occasion to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to carrying forward this legacy, to make it deeper, create more impact, strengthen the partnerships, continue the mission of building an Africa that first trades with itself and thrives on its own terms. The mandate of the bank, as set out in the Charter, is to promote and facilitate Africa's trade. The structure of that trade is skewed. It's extremely disfavorable to Africa. It has to change. It is also too dependent on export commodities. Our mission is therefore to transform the structure of that trade. So, prime mission, transform the structure of African trade. To change that structure, we must process. We must produce. Unless we produce, we will be unable to trade amongst ourselves. But your leaders have given to us as our prime mission in the coming years the need for Africans to trade amongst themselves. Trade in itself is not their objective. Trade is to enable us to develop. Trade also helps us to build ourselves as communities. So with that in mind, let me outline the areas we will prioritize over the next 5 to 10 years. We believe these sectors will have the most significant and sustained impact on our trade and our overall well-being. These would constitute the defining path of the next 5 to 10 years. First, we will promote and accelerate value addition and strategic minerals processing. We will work to stop the export of our raw potential. By transforming what we produce, building regional value chains, and fostering homegrown industries, we can create jobs, and we will create the jobs, retain the wealth, and drive growth across the continent. We will focus on developing strategic industries that can drive industrialization and job creation. Afreximbank will, therefore, create a new high-impact financing window, specifically for projects that process raw minerals into semi-finished goods or finished goods. We've made some promises. Some of you here seated very directly. To the governor of Ogun State, we made a promise that his fabric processing zone we will take heads on, and the partnerships are there in place. Let's be clear about this. Afreximbank is no longer interested in financing the export of Africa's raw commodities. I know we have many partners in here, and I know you would be sending text messages, calling our colleagues in the regional offices for financing. Let's be clear. If you're calling them so that we go and mine our soils, send our young men deep into the mines so that we export the gold raw and export the manganese raw, the cotton raw, the could go raw in the next 5 to 10 years, we are not interested in those. We intend to establish a strategic minerals development program that to process, to finance entire value chains, from extraction and refining to manufacturing finished components. Instead of exploiting those raw lithium from the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, for instance, we will finance factories to produce lithium-ion batteries locally. There is need to capture more value here at home and create high-skilled jobs for our people. Instead of exporting raw bauxite from Guinea, I met the Guinean minister a few minutes ago for the first time. He is attending these events for the first time too. Honorable Minister, maybe I'll have to say to you again in French after this. Mais pas question de la bauxite exportée dans son état naturel. We will not take Nigerian bauxite again. Mr. Chairman, when I take off your hat of a chairman and speak to you now more directly as a minister of finance, then we could be a bit more crude and more forward-taking. No more Nigerian bauxite or Gabonese manganese or Cameroonian bauxite or South African bauxite raw. We are not interested. We will focus on domestic processing. This has numerous benefits. Mr. Gan Gupta of the Arise Group, with whom we have tried some of those, spent some time telling us that by processing the minerals, we also help to develop the infrastructure. We improve your forex earnings. He did make it clear to us that in most cases, less than 20% of the investment actually goes to the mineral extraction itself. If the investment is properly done, 80% ends up in the roads, the rail links, the port facilities, the power stations that you have to build to supply the processing zones. On this, I'm going to call on my very good friends, our alliance, the African Finance Corporation. I hope Somalia is in here. We've had these exchanges before. We'll be relying on you, and we'll be relying on our friends at the Preferential Trade Bank, TDB in Nairobi. We'll be relying on you to ensure that this processing takes place. Next, our second priority is to deepen intra-African trade and regional integration. The success of our value addition agenda of the need to process will ultimately depend on our ability to secure markets for the goods we produce. In this regard, the heads of states have mandated us to ensure that the AfCFTA works. It represents a vital platform for advancing value addition and export manufacturing. We will intensify efforts to break down trade barriers. We will work with the team led by Ambassador Wamkele to break down barriers, strengthen cross-border infrastructure, and foster seamless movements of goods, services, people, especially people, and capital across the continent. We want to emphasize people. We have many government representatives here. Fear not your people. They are not harmless. You need them across the border. It seems, in our experience in Afreximbank, that the African states fear African peoples more than they fear foreigners. We cannot get a visa, and we worked very hard in Afreximbank to get you to admit that an Afreximbank laissez-passer would be very beneficial to you. We're now happy, we are pleased that you've come to terms with those. But take the further step, open your borders. Open your borders to your own people. They do no harm. Nigeria and Cameroon, Honorable Minister, that border has been opened since colonial times. Since the British and the French came, that border has been opened. In 1960, on independence, the states resolved that they would keep the borders open. Today, Nigeria is over 250 million, sometimes they say 230, sometimes 260. Those are just figures, it's neither here nor there, but it's a massive elephant. It sits next to Cameroon with merely 30 million, sometimes 32. The Nigerians have not invaded Cameroon in their numbers. They trade freely. The free borders mean that Cameroonian students move easily into Nigerian universities to study. Fishermen come from Cameroon to do their fishing and back. So long as they know they can come and go, they really have no difficulties trading freely. Everyone is free, including thieves. They too come in, steal, and go back. They'll never stay. So let them come through so that our people can move, and only that free flow of labor is going to help us achieve some of the infrastructure and some of the processing agenda we have. Afreximbank will therefore continue to play a catalytic role in implementing the AFCTA. You must help us in that regard. You must help us to drive that agenda. The third area we're going to focus on is trade-enabling infrastructure. We can't have that trade without the infrastructure. That's one of the areas we have been accused of mission creep. But it's very hard how a fragmented and highly dilapidated infrastructure network, from roads and railways to ports, power grids, remain a major bottleneck to intra-African trade and a significant driver of the high logistics cost on our continent. We think some emphasis should be placed on that. We already have an agenda with those countries which already produce excess power to construct the transmission lines and take to those with less. We will accelerate investments in critical trade-enabling infrastructure projects that directly connect African markets to one another. They will take the highway and rail lines, but also modernize seaports. But also, for some of you may not be aware of this, especially those in the financial services, just mere warehousing facilities and inland container depots, energy projects, and specialized logistics hubs. We are going to focus on that. For some of them, they would involve the construction of pipelines. We would focus on those. Priority would be given to infrastructure that links production centers with markets to unlock trade potential and lower the cost of doing business. Our interventions would be smart and innovative. They will be tailored to the realities of African trade, projects leveraging public and private sector partnerships, innovative financing structures, and regional coordination to ensure these investments have minimum impact. A key initiative under my leadership will be the creation of a shared, integrated infrastructure ecosystem for trade, something aimed at leveraging existing trade-enabling infrastructure in a very cost-effective manner, so that the countries which do not have can rely on the infrastructure next door. Fourth, we also think that Africa should not be left behind in the digital and innovative technologies. That's going to be an important area over the coming years. Innovation and technology are appointed extremely potent forces for change in Africa's economic landscape, and they offer a direct way to leapfrog persistent development challenges, dismantle barriers to trade, improve efficiency, and create new opportunities for growth. Together, they create an environment where African businesses can compete globally while they strengthen regional economic integration. We must therefore embrace new technology. We must embrace them with our arms open. We must invest in digital infrastructure, in platforms for e-commerce and payment platforms that advance analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning to create a seamless digital ecosystem to unlock Africa's full economic potential. Afreximbank has already launched and commercialized some of this digital infrastructure and ecosystems. The African Trade Exchange, ATEX, African Trade Gateway, and the payment system. So this is not new in Afrexim. This is merely to enhance that which already is being done. And it is to strengthen this, I will elevate artificial intelligence as a priority to leverage its tremendous transformative potential. We have to begin to think. Perhaps we should now begin to explore the creation of a Pan-African digital currency, which includes stable coins. I throw this at you. I know some of the governors are a bit itchy about, but we're just doing that just as yet. Dear governors, we will come to you with a working paper. Fifth, we think there is now need to mobilize global African capital in the most aggressive way. Through a bold and decisive actions, we are rebuilding the once broken ties between Africa and the people of African descent around the world. These courses of action fulfill the centuries-old aspirations, the aspirations of Pan-Africanists, such as Marcus Garvey and Kwame Nkrumah, W.E. William Du Bois, George Padmore, Edward Blyden, and many others who have long advocated for the reunification of people of African descent. The presence here today, presence amongst us, of the Honorable Terence Drew, the sitting Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, who spoke to you a few minutes ago and in much acclaim from your end, is an undeniable testimony of the advances already made. He would be chairing the next chairman of the CARICOM. We are therefore pleased that African and global leaders are very inclined on our initial findings. They are inclined to create a Global Africa Commission to serve as a platform for building consensus, for building common positions to tackle our shared challenges and accelerate the integration. It will also deepen trade, investment, and economic cooperation. The Commission will be under the distinguished chairmanship of His Excellency Baba Obasanjo and Honorable P.J. Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, spirit bearers of the Africa that Marcus Garvey and Du Bois prayed for, and Kwame Nkrumah, the Africa that President Nasser and Julius Nyerere fought for. We therefore extend our sincere thanks to the leaders of CARICOM. Honorable Dew, as you go back, we've had the opportunity to be there. tell them that the continent is integrating. I am most particularly interested in that integration. In my recent visit to Barbados, Prime Minister asked Sister Maya Motley, the very fiery Maya Motley, the defender of all causes African, told me in a very confidential discussion, but which she asked me to disclose if I wish to, that there exists an Elombi in her family. Her own uncle is called Elombi. Same spelling, E-L-O-M-B-I. So a Barbadian uncle is also called Elombi. Honorable Drew, the more reason why I have to go to the Caribbean more often. There is need for me to find out where else my grandfather went to. My mother is here. I know that her grandmother was a very adventurous woman. And Tiffany, I think here Tukubato, your grandmother, was a very adventurous mother. She traveled quite widely. But I'm not sure in all the studies, in all the findings I did in the family, no mention was made of another Elombi so far off in the Bahamas. So I'll be visiting more often, Honorable Jew, because perhaps the secret is there in the Bahamas. And should the secret be there, that's the more reason why we should integrate a little more. It is no coincidence that the Commission's composition, the Global African Commission, to it we've given great prominence to Africans in the Caribbean, underscoring our belief in the movement towards one global Africa. And by global Africa, we mean not only those on the continent, but also our brothers and sisters of African heritage in Latin America, in as close as Brazil, and as far as Colombia, and in the United States and elsewhere in the globe. Global African resources. Remember, I was talking about the mobilization of global African capital. So global African resources and global African capital will therefore be made to work for global African development. Too often African wealth, whether held by the diaspora or our own businesses and government sovereign funds, this wealth is invested elsewhere in the world. We will intensify efforts to connect this vast pool of capital from sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, diaspora investors, or private equity back to Africa's growth. Afreximbank will create innovative financial instruments, trusted co-investment platforms, and a pipeline of bankable African projects to allow African capital to flow to African opportunities. This is not just about financing. It is about ownership. It is about redefining the narrative of African development. It's time for Africa's wealth, wherever it resides, to work for our own future. The sixth pillar is the financial strength of your institution. At my appointment, our shareholders and President Orama set an ambitious goal to grow Afreximbank's balance sheet to $250 billion within 10 years. We thought that was quite a demanding task. So we went around consulting. And as we consulted further with a few African leaders, including His Excellency, the President of Egypt, who is a fundamentalist in his support to Afreximbank, and incidentally a major shareholder too, he set an even more ambitious target. He challenged us to aspire to reach $350 billion. That's extremely typical of him. This, therefore, is just not about figures and numbers. The message we took from debating the matter a little further with him, the message we took is that it was more a call for impact, for a momentous change, and that the foundation is already there. It's been laid over 30 years. And after 30 years, we ought to be creating greater impact than we have. It reflects a sense of urgency among our heads of states to build a financially strong and globally relevant African institution. It also demonstrates a deep trust, a certain confidence that they have in Afreximbank as a systemic institution for Africa's development. So they're committed to supporting it in all circumstances. And for this, we will not disappoint. With the same drive that has brought us this far, we will rise to meet the expectations of our shareholders and our continent's leadership. We recognize that only a strong and well-capitalized institution can make the scale of investments and interventions required to transform Africa's trade and the trade infrastructure and the development landscape. But what is it that gives us confidence that such growth, that level of growth is attainable within a relatively short time frame? The answer lies in our strategic focus. The focus on export processing and industrialization, the engines of wealth creation and value addition. We would rely on our own resources to do so. Honorable Drew, the paradox you described, by some coincidence, I think my colleagues and I who put this statement together also did think of a similar paradox along the same lines. You had no money, so you asked for money, you were told you were too poor to get the money. And when you had the money, you were told you were too rich to get some more. But we also did describe here that we've been investing in the wrong places. So if we invest in export processing, we get more money. And as we get more money, we'll be able to invest more. And the additional investment would produce the capital that we need to get ourselves to the level we intend to. So sometimes paradoxes. When we add value, we create wealth. And when we create wealth, we expand our capacity to reinvest. A growing base of retained earnings from reinvestment will enable us to strengthen the balance sheet of your institution. It will enable us to disburse more funds for high-impact projects, which in turn generate wealth and further drive growth. So as we put the money in the export processing zones, we will ask the states for assistance, not their money or administrative assistance. They provide the land. As we do so, you will hear more criticisms in the press about mission creep. Swipe them on one side of your hands and put them aside. These are detractors. Probably don't understand what it would take to change the situation of jobs in your countries, to give your ministries of finance a wider tax base. Unless we do that processing, nothing would change. And to do that, you must have a strong financial institutions. Next, in our agenda, we intend to create very strong partnerships, or to develop the partnerships we have. Our partnerships with relevant development institutions remain central to Afreximbank's mission. We recognize that Africa's progress depends not only on the strength of individual institutions, but also on the power of collaboration amongst us. In this regard, our partnership with the African Development Bank, which has been slow, will continue to be of enormous strategic value. We are particularly delighted, we're extremely delighted, by the appointment of the new president of the African Development Bank, a long-standing friend of Afreximbank, who has previously served as president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa and as a member of the board of Afreximbank. His very deep understanding, Mr. Sidi Outar, his deep understanding of Africa's development finance landscape gives us hope, gives us renewed confidence in the future of our collaboration with the African Development Bank. Mr. Sidi is also a very skillful manager of people. We believe that his combined strength, his belief in our development, and his ability to move people to achieve those is a very strong basis for that collaboration. We're also working to deepen the alliance of African multilateral financial institutions and to draw together partners like the Trade and Development Bank, TDB, Africa Finance Corporation, Africa 50, the Reinsurance Corporation, Shelter Afrique, and the TD, many other partners in and outside the continent. We believe only by drawing on these partnerships would we be able to deliver on a very large scale and large-scale cross-border solutions. Equally, our partnership with the African Union, it's hard to call that a partnership. That's the mother institution. So it's perhaps not a partnership. It's about being in the house in which we were born, staying where we are, staying where we belong. So that partnership, in the manner in which you described it, my sister Salima Maliki, Deputy Chair, that partnership, to use your same Arab words, Governor, we would describe it in the same Samna ala Asa. We stay in the same home. That's honey. That's honey mixed with butter. When the mix, there's no way to separate. You either take it whole or you reject it whole. So we're going to stay in our home in Addis Ababa, but we'll stay there to talk trade finance, to talk development finance. We will leave the politics to you and take the cue from you. And through these partnerships, we'll continue to provide practical financial and institutional support to accelerate African trade. We also remain grateful for the strong support we've received from certain development partners. The Islamic Trade Finance Corporation, China Development Bank, China Afreximbank, the Russian Export Center. Their support and trust have been instrumental in expanding Afreximbank's capacity to deliver impactful trade-enabling projects across Africa. The Standard Chartered Bank has been a strong supporter in that initiative. As we move forward, Afreximbank will continue to build, strengthen, and expand these partnerships because we know that Africa's success will be defined not by isolated, standalone efforts, but by a shared vision, sharing the resources and sharing our commitment to our continent's development. The details of these 6 or 7 areas of emphasis that I have just outlined. Mr. Chairman, I'll be over very soon. I've finished with the vision, with the agenda for the way forward, so I'll be over in a few minutes, but the details of these will be set out, and the specific programs and interventions we'll be doing to promote these agenda items will be outlined in the 7th strategic plan that Afreximbank would release in 2026. There are a few challenges in achieving this, distinguished shareholders, and we do recognize them. Most would be due to the financial, economic, and political environment as they develop, as we confront them week on week, month on month, decade on decade. Like most financial institutions, Afreximbank has developed mechanisms to respond and adjust to these changes. In truth, your bank has developed its own special mechanisms for recurrent challenges. That is why it has gained a reputation across the continent as a counter-cyclical institution. That is why it develops the capacity to respond very quickly, and a particular type of challenge. But right now, the challenge that we face is quite unique. It is new. It is not driven, nor is it justified by economic circumstances, political, environmental, social circumstances. That challenge is not of a general nature. It is targeted at African multilateral institutions, which are owned and controlled by you. There is a worry. The attacks have become increasingly hostile. What is quite ironic is that these attacks are not because we fail or we seem to be another African failure. It is because we are successful. The more relevant we become, the more disruptive we are considered to be, we are seen to be in certain quarters. Today, we are misguidedly accused of playing in fields that are supposedly the preserve of others, a phenomenon that has mischievously been called mission drift or mission creep. Sometimes we hear it even from African quarters. Some observers argue that Afreximbank should confine itself strictly to trade finance, and so they overlook the deeper realities of Africa's economic landscape. If we confined ourselves to trade finance, how would we produce a massive refinery, the biggest of the type Dangote has constructed? Dangote indicated to me today morning that he will be coming, Professor Orama, he will be coming for an additional $5 billion to expand the refinery. We have agreed to look for the money wherever it is, in Afreximbank accounts, in your individual accounts, because we believe it has to be done. He says if he does so, he would double his production and cut prices by 50%. Clearly for Nigeria and for all the countries along that West African coast, this would be a significant change, but we are told in Afreximbank that for dealing with that, we are mission creeping. This is a bit strange. It is actually a fundamental misunderstanding of our mandate. Our mandate is very badly read. It is even, on the words of it, inconsistent with the very literal reading of Afreximbank's charter. How will African trade survive unless African trade can produce? And how would it produce unless we transform the very structure of that trade? So we'll continue to do the Dangotes, and we'll continue to do the other massive projects, the cotton processing zones, that will change the outlook in our continent. Next, we are said to be entitled, not to be entitled to what is described as a preferred creditor status. That status you give to us in the treaties that you have signed. Unlike other multilaterals, the large multilaterals which were created several decades ago, the Afreximbank preferred creditor status is enshrined in its treaty. It is deeply enshrined in its treaty. The treaty is unequivocal that no member state could place a moratorium on Afreximbank's loans. No member state would seek to restructure Afreximbank's loans without the approval of the board of Afrexim. Nor could any member state give a preferential treatment to any other institution without extending the same treatment to Afreximbank. So that treatment is not something that we discuss, and for us, it's not a privilege, it's an instrument to enhance the work that Afreximbank does for the continent. It's more so in that the states which created Afreximbank granted that special treatment, which historically they have only done to institutions which are entirely owned by states. The Afreximbank was created with private sector contribution and encouraged to use private sector money, 65%, finance the private sector, but do development. For that reason, the states extended to Afreximbank the same treatment that they give in practice to the older multilaterals. But the fact that the states give this same treatment for private sector lending suggests that they thought Afreximbank was extremely important. So that particular treatment to us is very critical to the work that you have asked us to do. Next, we are told that the cost of our loans is too high, and for that reason, we should not deserve your special treatment. Sometimes it isn't quite clear what the actual cost of loans are. What our critics fail to point out is the actual cost of the so-called concessionary loans they claim to provide. They provide those loans with conditionalities that cause job losses and push young men and women all over the streets of our continent. They create those loans and drive economic circumstances that create civil and political disturbances. They give those so-called concessionary loans with reforms that restrict or prevent public sector interventions in the productive sectors, such as value addition and industrialization. And those loans heighten our commodity dependence. So we're just in a circle. We need to break that circle. But it's important that it's also clear to you as shareholders and owners of the institutions. Let's be clear on that. These coordinated attacks are a testament to the success of your institution. We are dismantling established orthodoxy, delivering impact and providing alternative sources of short and medium-term trade and development financing to Africans. We thereby reduce dependence on growth-inhibiting aid and so-called grants. Why should Africa's development, Mr. Chairman, why should our development pose such a great threat to others? In fact, the ministers of finance here present to reflect on this very deeply, or they are one of the sources, one of the channels through which these attacks are made. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the minutes you've given me. That's the agenda I have for you. But let me also take this opportunity to thank you again very much for the support you gave to us, not only as Minister of Finance in Nigeria and here, and for coming here so quick. Just thank you for the work we have done in Nigeria. And let me also take this opportunity, Deputy Prime Minister, Governor of the Central Bank, to express our gratitude to the host state and to you yourself, Governor Hassan Abdallah, for the interest you take in the work of Afreximbank and for your direct involvement in it. Ambassador Selma Malika, take the message home back to Addis, our home, that there is no intention in Afreximbank, just in case there were some fears over there, there is no intention here to change what is. We would remain in our home, working together with Addis. I have a large family here, almost impossible to enumerate. My wife, my children, you saw. Mother is sitting somewhere there, maybe on the second row. I call this mother Auntie Fanny. But I have another mother called Mama Aisha. She also sits in there. And I'm sure you Africans, you can understand why we can have several mothers at the same time. One gave birth to me, another one took very good close care of me, while the first went to the UK for studies. Finally, Mr. Chairman, let me say thank you to a very special individual we have in here. His name is Alhaji Yusuf. He may be somewhere in the crowd, a little tired. Maybe he isn't in here today, but he was quite visible yesterday. Alhaji Yusuf is from Ghana. He's one of those who believed in your institution from day one. Most investors in your institution were corporates. Alhaji Yusuf and a few others, Chief Odogu, maybe 3 of them, were individuals. At the time, he was developing his own investments in Ghana and trying to grow them. And when Babacar Ndiaye convinced him that the Afreximbank was a development objective, Alhaji Yusuf diverted much of his resources and invested as seed capital in Afreximbank. It was a very courageous move from an individual. So as we describe founding fathers, Alhaji Yusuf, one of those founding fathers. He gave all he had to Afreximbank, and we feel very proud. Dodu told us at the very start, in the first 10 years, you must not lose 1 cent of the shareholders. Alhaji Yusuf, we feel proud to be able to report to you that not much has been lost of your investment. It's been preserved intact. Thank all the founding shareholders of Afreximbank. Thank you very much for spending this time to listen to me, Chairman.
Woo! Dr. George Elombi, ladies and gentlemen, the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the African Export-Import Bank. Another round of applause, please. President, we can feel your conviction, your vision is clear, and your call for action is heard. We stand by you as you continue writing the story of Africa with the African Export-Import Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to remain standing so that we can officially close this afternoon's program with the anthem of the African Export-Import Bank that we will play in just a moment.
In the shores of the motherland and far beyond, with dignity we rise and we build a bridge for all. With integrity, respect, trust, excellence, commitment, creativity. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We will build for the now and posterity. As we standing together, we prevail till forever. We are transforming Africa's way. Oh, we are Afreximbank. From within the shores of the fatherland and far beyond, our voices we raise as we sing our victory song. With integrity, respect, trust, excellence, commitment, creativity. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We will build for the now and posterity. As we standing together, we prevail till forever. We are transforming Africa's way. Oh, we are Afreximbank. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We will build for the now and posterity. As we standing together, we prevail till forever. We are transforming Africa's ways. Oh, we are Afreximbank. Hey, salam. Oh, yeah, my way, salam. Oh, yeah, my way, salam.
This brings our program to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being witnesses to this milestone day and achievements.
You're watching Arise, the world's standout news channel.